Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan Foose, and over on Substack, I write a newsletter, I suppose you could call it that, called Wonder Book. And as part of that, I would like to do this every week. It doesn't happen every week. I'm trying to kind of get on that rhythm, but every once in a while, let's say it that way, I publish a poem that I kind of classify as poems in progress. They're poems that I kind of just put together on the fly. They're not polished products. Kind of in the spirit of Walt Whitman. If you know anything about Walt Whitman, he worked on his seminal piece, his seminal book, Leaves of Grass, for many years. In subsequent editions, he would add poems, he'd take poems out, he'd move pieces of certain poems around into other poems. So for him, at least from my understanding of that, is, it was never quite a finished work. And I kind of approach this series of poems that I write kind of in that way. Also, in the spirit of Bob Ross, who you all might know, for many years on public TV, he would put a painting together live in front of a camera. So kind of in the spirit of Bob Ross as well, I thought I would try to make some videos where I type a poem live, so to speak. And you can kind of watch me go through that process where in the moment I'm coming up with what I'm going to put down on the page. A lot of times I like to write poems on paper, or I have a digital tablet, a digital notebook that I use. I like to write them by hand. I think poetry lends itself to being written by hand. But for these purposes, to kind of make this work, I'm gonna type them out. So we're gonna see how this goes. I got my studio set up here. One of my daughter's paintings behind me. Kind of bare bones. Just giving it a shot, see how this goes. As I work on the poem, I have no idea at this moment what I'm going to put down. I just got right over here on the screen. It's kind of my canvas I'm working on. I'm just going to start going. And as I do that, I'll maybe kind of talk you through my process a little bit. I don't know that I really have a process. It's just kind of what's going through my mind, or why I decided to change something as I go. So I really have no idea what I'm going to put down, how long this is going to take. So we'll just give it a shot and wing it, and see what this is like. A sip of tea. I mean, you got to have a little tea when you're writing poetry. You know what I mean? Sometimes I find poems they kind of write themselves. You can be in the middle of something, you're out on a walk, you're driving to the grocery store, and you just kind of have a poem start to form in your mind. And a lot of times it's at inconvenient moments because you don't have any way to write it down or get it down in any way. So you're just trying to kind of repeat that line or those few lines in your head. So sometimes it just kind of spills out. Other times I'll sit down and I really have no idea what's going to happen or where it's going or even kind of what's stirred. I think that's kind of where I'm at this point. So see if there's any images or any, emotions or whatever that have been percolating, kind of under the surface. So I'm just going to kind of sit for a minute. I may not put this whole kind of waiting process in the video. I don't know if that would be very interesting, but I'm just going to kind of wait it out here and see what might strike me. All right, so I think kind of how I've started now. I'm on Christmas break right now. My family and I were on Christmas break, and my wife and I are both teachers, and so this is kind of a, it's kind of sacred time. It's kind of holy time where you get this nice break in the middle of the school year and kind of get to, put yourself back together, so to speak. I'm kind of thinking about now how when you don't have a schedule and you don't have tasks that you have to do, and you can kind of just let the day unfold on its own without a particular schedule, those days can kind of seem to stretch and lengthen. So I'm kind of playing around with that idea. This idea of kind of like flow. You get in a flow, and if you've ever been in that flow state, it almost seems like you step out of time. If you've ever been an athlete, or if you've ever done anything where you kind of get in that space where time just stretches out. Just kind of continuing here. I'm just kind of playing with losing the sense of rhythm and connectedness that comes with our day-to-day lives. And I'm kind of I think I'm kind of dipping it into a surrealist kind of direction at the moment. We'll see. Keep going here. I'm gonna go back to the top of the poem and just read it to myself. Sometimes you got to do that because if you've ever written poetry, you know that poetry is not just the words on the page. It's also the rhythm of the words, kind of the music of the words, how the words, not necessarily just their literal meanings, but how their sounds play together with each other. And also things like line breaks, which is kind of something that with this setup kind of have a narrow space to write. And so the line breaks aren't necessarily maybe exactly where I want them, but that's okay. So I'm just going to keep cooking here. Try not to lose the thread of it too much here. Playing with a little more imagery. I feel kind of a playful, maybe sarcastic tone, even a little bit. Not necessarily sarcastic, maybe a little more playful going on in here. I'm going to try to continue to follow that thread a little bit. Searching for another image here. I have the last image in my head for the last line of the poem, but I'm working. We're going to find one more. So let's see. Okay. I kind of like that. I don't know about the line, and even a visit from death by supper. I'm not sure if that fits or not, if that's a little too dark. I guess what I'm working on implying there is when you have a day like that, or you have a time like that where you don't have this structure and the day almost seems to lengthen a little bit, would you even recognize death if it came, or would that even be something on your mind? Will it have felt like your life stretched out so much that, oh, here's death now? You know, I think that's kind of what I was implying there. There are days when we fall into the stream of life, flow, and a day lengthens by a few minutes, or a half hour, or maybe many hours. Who can really tell? You forget the day, the date, your name, what you once did, and what it once was that you had felt chasing you, anxious through your days. Breakfast could happen at midnight, a visit with a neighbor at tea time, and even a visit from death by supper. The calendar is blurred by spilled milk. The mail is delivered whenever. And the clock has kicked off. Its shoes has kicked off its shoes. See? Look at that. Sometimes when you read it, you're like, let's flip some stuff around. Off its shoes. It's okay. That's the deal with poetry, I think, is feels like you could rework it and rework it and rework it. Sometimes you get the words down and you're like, man, that's it. I don't think that's super common. So the idea with these poems in progress is I recognize that they're not probably finished or polished, but you know, I could probably sit forever and kind of dink around with a poem and never kind of share it into the world. So it's kind of this idea that we can come back to them later and tweak them, and like Whitman was known to do. Okay. I think I'm going to leave that there. All right, everybody. Well, this was interesting. I don't know if this worked or not. Let me know what you think, how maybe I could adjust this if this is an interesting concept, if I should keep going with this, if this is kind of an interesting idea, or if it's interesting to see somebody putting a poem together on the fly. I would be delighted if you went over to Substack and you checked out my publication over there, Wonder Book. I write poetry, I write some essays, and really the premise behind Wonder Book is just like the name suggests. There's so many incredible, wonderful things out there, and it's kind of a way for me to explore those things through writing and sharing some of the things that perplex me, intrigue me, and hearing about how those things strike you as well. So I'll leave a link down below. I'd be delighted, as I said, if you went over and checked out Wonderbook on Substack, and if it's something that you would think you'd be interested in following, you can subscribe to the newsletter through Wonderbook, and all new posts will be shared straight to your email. All right, everybody, I really appreciate you taking some time to hang out and explore this process with me, and maybe we'll be seeing you down the road. All right, peace.